it looks like we have just hit the top of the hour and I think we can get started. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. We have an amazing session coming up for you now, and I'd love to officially welcome all of you to our 12th annual WBEC Summit by Coaching.com. I am going to be bringing on Karen Lamb in just a moment, who's going to be speaking on asking loaded questions to ignite transformation. And this session is going to last for 45 minutes. Please keep the conversation going after the session in our community, where there is a dedicated post for Karen's session. You can leave your questions and comments, and Karen will be taking a look at those in the next few days. And we'll pop the link to that session post in the chat box for you now. So my name is Beth Schofield and I'll be your host for today. We also have Lynn and JP supporting all of the logistics in the background. Today's session is slightly different to others in the summit, as our speaker today was a full summit member last year, and she is speaking in today's event because of her outstanding session in the Coach Showcase. So the Coach Showcase is a feature of the full summit, which provides coaches with the opportunity to get onto the WBEC stage themselves. Coaches submit applications which are reviewed by a selection committee, and we select the best ones to take part in the Coach Showcase. So last year we selected 8 applicants, and these sessions were spread out over the course of last year's full summit. And from those 8 sessions, we gathered feedback and ratings, and we have invited the 2 highest rated Coach Showcase speakers to come and speak in the 2022 summit. And Karen was one of those. So we want to give a huge congratulations to Karen, and I'm delighted to introduce her to you all now. So Karen Lamb is a communication specialist who helps her clients to discover the keys to positive transformation through authentic and valued-based conversations. As a corporate trainer, business coach, broadcaster, and author, Karen has worked with companies throughout Asia Pacific, and her clients include Boston Consulting Group, Ernst & Young, Accenture, and FedEx. And with that, Karen, I am delighted to hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Beth, and thank you for that very generous, magnanimous, gracious, and can I also say cringe-worthy introduction, because no matter how often I hear my bio being read back to me, I can never, ever stop cringing. But it's all worth it. It's all worth it because I'm here with you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'm going to start the ball rolling by asking you 3 questions, 3 very quick questions. And if you can pop the answer into the Q&A box, that would be fantastic. So talk back to me, because I get your energy and I can give you energy back. All right. So my first question to you is, what did you have to give up to spend this next 45 minutes in this session? What did you have to give up to spend this 45 minutes here in this WBEC session? Let me see. Dinner time. Oh my goodness. Thank you. Your morning walk. Whoa, that would be tough for me to give up. But thank you for being there, Shelby, for being here. Sleep. Oh my gosh, that is a lot to give up. Meetings. So many meetings. I'm wondering whether that's actually a good or a bad thing that you gave that up. Definitely dinner is a resounding winner here. Gardening, oh, well, I do hope you would be able to spend that time back in your garden. All right, so we've all given up something to be here. So that's my first question. My second question to you then is, what are you willing to do to make this time worth your while? What are you willing to do to make this time worth your while? Let's have a look at your answers. You want to open your mind. You want to be present fully, Judy. Thank you. Focus, so important in this age of distraction. Close attention, listen, explore, learn. I love that, Suzanne. Thank you. And be fully present. Absolutely. And my third question to you is, how do you believe you can be better from this session? I know you haven't heard me, you don't know what's happening, you kind of have an idea of what to expect, but what do you believe that you will walk away with from this session? That's the last. What have we got here? Let me see. Oh, so fast and furious. I'm just trying to catch up now. You want to understand. You want to have new ideas. You want to gain confidence. Wow, that's a big one. You want to always learn something new. Thank you, Wendy. We're of the same ilk, definitely. Fresh insights, learning to ask the right questions. So there's no doubt about the fact, thank you all for participating. So there's no doubt about the fact that, I am preaching to the converted here when we talk about the value of questions. But do you see what I've just done? I've essentially unlocked a couple of things here. I've unlocked, firstly, for you, the cost and the sacrifice that you've had to put in to this session, after which I have gotten you to own part of the value creation from this session. And finally, I also got you to envision for yourself that change that you want to see in yourself. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the world of loaded questions. It's a framework of questions that essentially sparks energy, it instills hope, it lends courage, and ultimately, I hope at least, to ignite transformation. Now, if you are anything like me, and you're in the business of asking questions, and it's obvious that most of you are here because you are in this area of asking questions, you would probably have found yourself in this really awkward position, with someone you're helping or with your clients, and you go midway through the conversation, and it goes like, now what? Or what do I ask? I've got half an hour more to go. Where do I go with this? And I've often found myself in this really awkward, difficult place where I'm just wondering where do I take this conversation now? And so in my frustration, I decided I needed to sit down and come up with a framework that would be easy enough for me to remember, and more importantly, will give me at any moment in time a set of questions that will help me to explore the breadth and the depth of my client's context at any moment of time. So that is the value that I hope Loaded Questions can bring to you as it has brought to me. So I have 6 types of questions, and I'm going to have a little bit of a confession here, because timekeeping is actually one of my weakest suits. So I am just going to preempt myself and jump into it very quickly as much as I can, so that I can leave as much space and time for the Q&A after my session. Right, so let me just start off by introducing to you what the first set of questions actually sound like. So why is it called loaded? Well, we all know the term loaded to mean, if we say a loaded statement or a loaded question, it's often used in the context of a statement that's very nuanced, it's complex, that it contains multiple perspectives. And that is what loaded questions is. But what it is not is that typical connotation that we often associate with loaded questions, which is often to trick and to trip people into saying the wrong things. We'd often use this term loaded questions in the courtroom, for instance, where lawyers from the opposition would always be asking us questions that would cause us to say something that would indict us. Well, that is not the intention at all with my set of loaded questions. So the way in which we can understand loaded and to recall it easily is to remember the LOADED, the first letters of each type of question from this acronym. So the first one would be L, and that stands for legacy questions. Legacy questions essentially help your clients discover the influence of the past on present behavior. And we all know we have stories that we tell ourselves that inform our present and determine our future. Behavioral economists call it the narrative fallacies, the stories that or experiences of the past which we hold on to and which we believe will determine our future. So some of these questions sound like this. Can you recall an incident in the past that triggered this reaction or a behavior. So if you listen up for hints from your clients, you'll hear a statement like, you know, I was really upset, or I'm really fearful about what will happen here. Well, you can help them to tap into what informs this belief. Can you recall an incident? In what ways have your experience informed your decision, if there is a decision to be made? And how did you come to this belief, to helping them trace back to where they were before? And what was it about the past that influences them now? What of the past interactions could possibly hold you back from making the change you want? So there's two parts to this question: an exploration of the past, as well as a vision of the kind of change that they want to see in themselves. And is there a disconnect? Is there really no human agency at all, and that you are totally a subject of your past? So this is an example that, this is a question that I had asked a client of mine recently, who is one of the smartest people I've ever met. She is an Ivy League graduate, you know, super smart, super quick. And when you talk to her, she's witty, she's fun to be with. But the moment you put her in a group, in a setting that has 3 or more people, she clamps up. She becomes diffident. And in the kind of company that she works with, that's not acceptable behavior, because she is expected to be forthright. She is expected to be forthcoming. So I asked her this question: what of your past interactions could stop you from being the person that you want to be? Someone who's more confident, someone who would want to speak up a little bit more, who would want to show up and show, in some sense, show off what it is that you know, because you do have a lot of wisdom to share. And she shared with me that it was because of a particular time in her past when she came in, she went into a particular interaction. She prepared a presentation in which she was so excited about. She was totally stoked about what she was going to present. But the moment she got into the boardroom, her senior partner walked in. And before she could even say a word, the senior partner totally flipped her presentation around and gave a contrary opinion altogether. And that devastated her, it undermined her. And ever since that incident, she would always pepper her statements about herself like this. She would say something like, there's always somebody else in the room who has a better idea than I do. And that's because of that one incident in the past. So we had to work through these past narrative fallacies that she had that informs her behavior today to help her to change. And from that conversation, we were able to talk about that next question. What of the current situation is different about your past experience? What's changed between that time when you felt undermined to where you are today? And of course, she would be able to say, well, I'm a little bit wiser, you know, I have more insights, I'm certainly more experienced. And guess what? That partner is no longer around as well. So there you go. It's a different situation. How then should you respond? Should you be a subject or a prisoner of your past? So these are ways in which legacy questions are great questions to help unlock what we call self-limiting beliefs. Questions like, in what ways can we tell ourselves a different story? So those are legacy questions which will help. And the next set of questions are, start with the letter O, and they are what we call outcomes questions. Questions that will help our clients envision and experience the end game. What is it that they want at the end of this interaction, at the end of this project, or at the end of this, what do they want from this relationship? So what are some of the questions that we can ask? What will the outcome look like by the end of the timeline? What would you need to experience in order to know you have achieved your goal? Or what would the conversation sound like when you've arrived? Now, I want to talk about these first 3 questions. And you would have noticed that these 3 questions are similar yet different. They tap on different, what we call representational systems of our clients. The first question talks about what will the outcome look like. the sense of sight. What would you need to experience a feeling? Thirdly, what would those conversations sound like? That's auditory. Now, you may be familiar with these three representational systems, the way people receive information. There's always one predominant representational system. There can be a few, but there is pretty much a predominant one. Some people are very good in taking in information visually. Some people are very good in taking information in with feeling, experience, and others are good with listening out for instructions rather than reading instructions. So in the course of my relationships and my conversations with my clients, I try to discover what their representational systems are. And I do that by listening to their conversations. So if they use a lot of terms that sound like, it looks to me like, this is going to be a tough one, or they'll say, I just can't quite see how this will end. That kind of gives me, it's not going to be set in stone, but it gives me an indication that perhaps my client's representational system is visual. And if it is, then I will use an outcome question like, what will the outcome look like by the end of the timeline? And if I feel that my client is a more kinesthetic, he experiences things and learns from experience better, and I would get them from listening to him saying things like, I kind of feel that, I'm getting a different vibe from this. I'm not feeling the most comfortable here. This gives me the sense that, okay, perhaps it's kinesthetic. So I would ask the question, what would you need to experience? And likewise with conversations that sound, and I'll use that for my auditory clients. So those are three different types of questions that all lead to the same result. And that fourth question down there, how will this be evident to others? This will be a question I would typically ask, particularly when the outcomes are not measurable. They are not quantifiable. It's not like, for instance, I want to lose weight. I want to lose 15 kilos by the end of the year, or I want to get that promotion, or, I want to live a healthier lifestyle. So those are pretty much measurable. But there are times when outcomes may not be as measurable as that. Like, for instance, I want to be more assertive. I want to be less domineering. I want to be more collaborative. Well, how will this be evident to others? So I get them to articulate what this will look like, feel like, sound like from someone else's perspective. And that will be a way to solidify the outcomes for them. For some clients, if I feel that it's possible, I would get them to stretch a little bit further. Remember, our role as coaches is to bring out the best, the potential, what is yet unseen in our clients. So I would ask a question like, if you were to reach further, what would you want to achieve? So these are more what we would call stretch goals rather than just SMART goals. You may have heard of SMART goals, but stretch goals really push your clients a little bit more to see what is it that they perhaps would want to achieve. And after I've done that, I would take one extra step, one extra outcome question. And that question would be, how will your achievements impact the community around you? I want them to be able to see that what they want to achieve, the outcomes that they want to achieve, in order to achieve sustainability, wholeness, well-being, it's not always just about you. It is also about the environment, it's about the community, it's about, if you like, the greater good. And I'm taking this thought from an excellent book, which I would recommend to you if you want to explore something beyond Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And it's called Transcend. It's by Scott Kaufman, and he's a cognitive scientist and a faculty member of Columbia University. A great book, and his thesis essentially is that people are not, we don't just stop short at self-actualization. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we all are familiar with that. At the apex of the triangle is self-actualization. The part where we feel the most fulfilled, according to Maslow, is when we can achieve what it is that we want. But more than that, Kaufman's theory is that there is more to life than just ourselves. There is that purpose. Simon Sinek, of course, has a best-selling book, Beginning with the Why. I think it's beginning, something along the lines of beginning with a why, asking yourself the purpose of what you do, why you do. So I'm going to quote from a little part of the book from Kaufman, and he says, it's important not only to choose goals that are highly conducive to growth for our clients, but to choose them for the right reasons so that they resonate with you at a very deep level, because it's entirely possible to adopt a growth goal, but still not feel that it's really you. So I do tend to push the envelope slightly when it comes to outcome questions, to get them to imagine and to get them to cast a purpose that is a little bit larger than themselves. And the whole idea behind that is to ensure sustainability, a sense of wholeness, and ultimately a sense of well-being in the long run. So at this point, I'm going to throw this outcome question to you. And if you can answer that and put your answers in the Q&A box, that would be great. So an outcome question for you: what is the purpose for which you are striving to achieve coaching mastery? I'm assuming that you're coaches here. And if you're not a coach here, then what is the purpose for which you are striving to achieve mastery in whatever it is that you have set your mind on? Let's have a look at your answer. What is the purpose for which you are striving to achieve coaching mastery? To increase my impact, to help others live more meaningful lives, to support others, helping others. Mohammed, thank you. Impact, to equip my clients to self-actualize, to empower idlers, to make a difference, for my clients to reach new insights. Great answers. And what do we see that we have in common in all the answers here? It's not just about ourselves. You are here, and your purpose in wanting to sharpen your skills and your craft is for greater good, for the people and the community around you. I love your answers. Thank you for that. So these are outcome questions which, if it ignites some energy and some purpose and some renewed vigor for you, imagine what it would do if you would ask outcome questions of your clients, to invigorate them, to bring to life what perhaps has been lying dormant for a long time. So those are outcome questions that we can present to our audience. The next one would be what I would call ambit questions. Now, ambit questions essentially test the outcome questions. So they measure the level of commitment. If you say you want to lose weight, what are you willing to do to lose weight? So questions like, what are you willing to do to achieve this? And also, conversely, what are you not willing to do to achieve this? What sacrifices do you have to make? Does that sound familiar? Do you realize I asked you an ambit question at the start of the session? What did you have to give up to be here at this session? Right? So that was an ambit question. What sacrifices did you have to make? I need you to see that you had to pay for something to be here. What will make you uncomfortable in the process? And this is a question that I would typically want to ask, and I ask it gently and I ask it with kindness, because we all know that it's not all about sunshine and roses and rainbows and roses. So we do want to help our audience, our clients, see what's out there, what are the speed bumps ahead of them that they need to be aware of. So a question like, what will make you uncomfortable in the process, will help them to see that. Is there something that you're willing then to go through? So ambit questions are great to test for our audience what are some of the things that they need to be mindful of in achieving their goals. Next, we have, halfway through now, we're on to the fourth type of question. These are depth questions. And depth questions essentially plow the depths that lie between the lines. And I would say that unlike legacy, outcome, and ambit questions, depth questions are more unprescriptive. They do follow the train of thought and they follow the thread of the conversation as you're listening. So this is where we need to counter as much for our clients their own assumptions as we need ours. So I just want to show you, let's do a very quick quiz. And at this point, I am going to call on Beth to come on and play a little game with us. Thank you, Beth. So I am going to ask you a question, Beth. It's a little riddle, and just go with the flow and see what you can come up with, and we'll see what your answers are, and we'll see what we can learn from it.
Okay, I'm ready.
Great, thank you. So there you go, Beth. An engineer in the UK has a brother in the US who's a lawyer. Okay, clear about the first part of the question? An engineer in the UK has a brother in the US who's a lawyer. But the lawyer in the US, that same person, does not have a brother in the UK who's an engineer. Why? I assure you, Beth is not frozen. There's nothing wrong with the internet connection.
Yes, I am. No, it is. It's my connection.
Beth, if it's any comfort to you, I was totally stalled at this point in time as well. And yeah, it's still stumbling.
Oh, is the engineer a woman?
Well,
yeah.
Well done, Beth. Exactly. How many of you actually got that? Well, you are one up me. I definitely did not get that at all. That's right. How did you get that? Tell us your process.
Just fruit freezing.
What?
Yeah, no, I don't know. I just kind of read it a few times until it made sense.
Okay, and why did it not seem apparent at the beginning?
I suppose because I stereotypically thought that the engineer was a man.
Exactly. Good. And that was my perception. That was my assumption. And well, as I said, you're brilliant because I couldn't get past that assumption at all. Thank you, Beth.
Yay!
Well done. You've redeemed yourself.
Yeah, after the last one. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. So there you have it, right? What we're seeing here is that very often we have our own assumptions, our own heuristics, our own biases, which we as coaches need to overcome ourselves. And I would say that we all know that curiosity is a huge value that we all can put in our tool bag. But the biggest stumbling block when it comes to curiosity is assumptions. Our assumptions are what stops us from asking the questions or the right questions, or to dig deeper, to go into depth. So let's have a look at what some of these depth questions are. Journalism 101, that was my past life. And that's something that we've learned from day one. The 5 W's and the 1 H. Who, what, why, when, where, how. Or in this case, who, when, where, why, how. And we can ask these questions and still need to explore a little bit further. Well, those are the questions that I would ask as a journalist. But as I got deeper and deeper into this craft of coaching, I realized that there are 2 more questions that I can actually add to my arsenal that has proven to be very effective. And those 2 questions are, so what? And what else? Let's have a look at them. So we'd ask the question, if someone were to say, I feel overwhelmed by this expectation, what's the question here? What is the loaded statement? Loaded statements demand loaded questions. And so the question I would ask is, what specifically is that expectation that overwhelms you? Who has set this expectation for you? Let's identify players in the game. And of course, how much of it is within your control and how much of it is out of your control. And we all know that with human agency, we can only act on what is within our control. And being overwhelmed by what is outside is not productive. What else can you do about it? If your client gives you that first level of answers, don't be satisfied with that. Dig deeper. What else can you do about this? And I have found that this has been probably 80 to 90% of the times when I ask this question, I do tend to get a different answer. And after I hear a different answer, I'm actually encouraged to ask again, what else can you do? And I'll find a different answer being unearthed over and over and over again. And that's precious because when we ask questions like that, we dig deeper, we help our clients to dig deeper into their consciousness, into what really matters for them. The so what question. So for instance, if a client were to say, you know, I need to get out there, I need to be with my people, I need to be able to gauge the sentiment on the ground. Don't be satisfied with this phrase, gauge the sentiment on the ground. So what? So what? What are you going to do with the fact that you can gauge that sentiment on the ground? Right? So just to get them to explore the depth and to explore the implications of what it is they intend to do can help them to come to that point of realization and to come to a point of clarity, more importantly. And when they finally do, I can then start to move them towards action. So when do you plan to do what? Getting them to move from their ruminations, from a lack of clarity to a clarity to the point of action. And when I feel that that conversation has come full circle, that's when I go back and I ask them, how now do you feel about those expectations? What I wanted them to do is to be able to see and to articulate that they have moved the needle from being uncertain to being a little bit more certain. And with that, it does make them feel a little bit more energized, and according to neuroscience, it sparks what's known as the emotional, the positive emotional attractor. At this point, I really highly recommend, and I believe, Beth, you may correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Richard Boyatzis is going to be one of the speakers at the Full Summit. So he's one of the leading thought leaders. Is that, am I correct, Beth?
No, we've had Richard in the past, but he's not in this year's summit.
Okay,
no.
Right. So if he is not, here's another source in which you can listen to him. He's actually on Coursera, so it's free for all. Google him on Coursera and find out from him, because he's one of the leading thinkers when it comes to neuroscience and coaching. And his theory essentially is that if we can activate that part of the brain, the PEA, the positive emotional attractor, we can stir and ignite action. We can stir and ignite motivation. So that's what I do with depth questions. And that's what depth questions can actually do for your clients. So there you have it. You've got legacy, outcomes, ambit, and depth questions. So now we have the last two questions that we can ask. And the E, I'm already seeing different ones of you trying to guess what the E stands for. And it essentially is, yes, you are correct, empathy questions. Empathy questions or empathy statements reflect back what it is you hear and see about the emotions and the words that are being used, right? So what do they sound like? So empathy, from the queen of empathy herself, Brené Brown, is defined as not connecting to an experience, but more importantly, connecting to the emotions that underpin an experience. And I find this definition extremely helpful for me when I coach my corporate clients. Now, those of you who do have corporate clients or move in these circles, you do realize that corporate speak is all about objectivity. It's all about logic. We very seldom delve into what people feel about a particular project or a particular interaction. And I think it's important for us, if we want clarity, if we want to lead our clients to clarity and to understand the disconnect that they sometimes feel, to raise empathy questions with them. So empathy questions, of course, sound like, so tell me, how do you feel about this? And it's also very important for you to ask them, tell me more about why you're feeling, and then you use the client's label. And this is the point that I really am sold out by. I think it's very important for us not to interpret, or sometimes misinterpret, even worse, the feelings that are expressed by our clients. So if they use the word upset, I would use the word upset back with them. Tell me more about why you're feeling upset, since you've used that word. I will not insert my own interpretation of what upset means. So I will not say something like, tell me more about why you're feeling frustrated. That's you, that's your reality, and that's your truth. And that certainly may not be theirs. So the best thing for you to do is to use the term that they use and to get them to explore further. And if they happen to stumble on the word frustrated, well, there you have it. That becomes theirs. And when they can say it, they can own it and they can act on it. We also listen and we ask empathy questions with our eyes and with our ears. So when you notice that their shoulders are slumped, when their face are lit, when they're actually leaning forward this time, getting closer to the camera, if you happen to give virtual coaching sessions, sound it out to them. You know, I see your shoulders slumped, I see your face light up, I see you leaning forward. What are you feeling? Get them to identify what it is that their bodies are actually responding to. And of course, their voices, another nonverbal part that's so important for us to tap on. I hear your voice pitching up. I hear your voice dipping in energy, or you're speaking actually much faster this time. What emotions am I hearing here? Again, it's all about getting them to express what it is they are feeling through their bodies and through their senses. Now, when we talk about empathy questions, a whole lot of it has got to do with, of course, the ability to also develop emotional literacy. And sometimes I would ask my clients the questions, if you are supposed to be, you know, facing your staff with bad news and you don't quite know how to do it, I would speak to them, I would talk to them and walk them through. How do you feel? What do you feel is the right response to your staff? How will your staff respond to the announcement? Or what emotions, therefore, should be evident to them as you speak to them? So these are empathy questions that help our clients to get in touch with their emotions. So time is running up, and I think I still have one last type of question. And this is the question that I enjoy using very much. But I do want to caution that this type of question needs to be used in a relationship of trust. And they're known as dissonance questions. Questions that test convictions. If they've decided to take a certain course of action, my job is to essentially to ensure and to help them to be sure about their course by perhaps sometimes testing it with a contrary view. So for instance, if my client says that, you know, I'm going to walk away from this opportunity, I'm cool with that. Okay, great. So you believe that walking away from this opportunity is the right thing to do. Now, play out a scenario for me where you would choose to take up this opportunity. What would that look like? So the idea here is to make sure that they have counted the cost of what it is that they've decided to do. If it is to walk away, to count the cost of what it is they're giving up. Next, I would ask them something I have asked a client who is in an organization that has an up or out policy. You either get promoted or you're asked to resign. I asked him, what would it mean to you if you didn't get the promotion? I wanted to make sure that he was all right, that he had his own sense of fulfillment that doesn't just come from the promotion itself. And he said to me, you know, it's actually okay. I'm all right if I don't get the promotion, but I won't be all right if I know I'm not progressing, that I know that I'm not getting better. Wonderful. So that's alignment of his values and of what and of that future that he's seeing. And finally, you could also ask a question. You say you're a micromanager, all right? If that's their statement, I'll reflect that to them, and then I'll ask them, what are the pros and cons to that? What are some pitfalls in that for you? What are the pitfalls for that for your staff if you happen to manage people? Next, if you say you don't speak up because you fear being judged, how would you behave if you knew you were safe to say anything and your views are valid? So this is to put them in a place of psychological safety. Thank you, Amy Edmondson, for appearing and for speaking at the summit earlier this week. And something that we can actually use and to be able to help our clients be able to see that their reactions are reactions to what may or may not be real in the external environment in which they're in. Right. So these are dissonant questions to give them a contrary view to test out their convictions and their beliefs. So there you have it. Legacy, outcomes, ambit, depth, and empathy, and finally, dissonance questions. So use this with care. One of the things that I have done in designing and developing these questions is really having a very clear value embedded in it, and that's the value of care. If you care, and when you care for your clients well enough and enough, loaded questions can work wonders for them. Care enough for them to give them the gift of curiosity because they're worth it. They are interesting enough for you to spend time with. Give them the gift of authenticity to be able to believe that they are good enough for you to be real and unencumbered. Give them the gift of restedness, knowing that you are rested as a coach because you believe that they have the resources to be better. And finally, give them the gift of empathy. When you can do that, you're telling them that their emotions are valid because they are valued. So use loaded with care and use loaded to care.
Bravo, Karen. That was fantastic. Thank you so much. We have got a couple of minutes to answer some questions, and there's just been so much love coming into the Q&A box, Karen. So huge congratulations. Before we jump into the Q&A, I'm just going to launch a quick poll so we can find out how you would rate this session out of 10, and also let us know if you have enrolled in all of the WBEC sessions you are interested in, or if there are more that you can see that you'd like to register for in the future. I also, Karen, would love to have you put the empathy questions slide back on just for the last couple of minutes, because we've had a few people asking to see that slide again, to see those questions. So that's wonderful. Okay, so a couple of questions. This question came from a few different people, and it's basically about how you use these questions within a coaching engagement. So do you use them in a linear format, where you kind of go through the framework, or do you put them in at different times? What's the kind of structure around when you would use these questions within a coaching engagement?
Definitely not linear. I don't think there is a prescribed way of using them. And in giving you these, 7 questions, it is not in any form in chronology. It is just examples in which you can use when you sense that there are certain feelings that might, that your client might do well to explore a little bit more.
Okay. Fabulous. Got it. I hope that was helpful for those who are asking that question. Okay, let me see. I need more. Do you know what, Karen? I think this is the session where we've actually received the least amount of questions, and I think that is because everyone was just so engaged and focused on what you were presenting.
That's very nice of you to say that, Beth. It's either that or they're not engaged at all. But thank you.
No. It's definitely the former, I promise. Okay. Okay, a question from Olga. How many questions would you consider optimal?
Oof. So again, a prescriptive question. It really depends. To tell you the truth, I've never counted the number of questions I've actually asked. It really depends on how much time I have, with my client. And I find that, if I could have a good 1 hour with them of really just, saying the hellos and the warm-ups, and really it's not prescriptive. Sometimes the less questions I can ask and the more they can speak, maybe that's actually the optimum.
Amazing, thank you. Well, we are at the end of the session. If you do have questions that we haven't put to Karen today, then please head into the community and put your questions there. Karen will be hopping into her session post in the coming days and will be looking at all your questions and comments in there. So please head over there. We've put the link into the chat box. I also want to mention the implementation mastery sessions. So these are coach-led small groups which take place 15 minutes after each session. So the implementation mastery sessions for Karen's session will be taking place in 15 minutes. These are facilitated sessions where you can connect with small groups of peers from across the globe and discuss how you can apply what you've learned in the sessions into your coaching practice. And you can register for those via the link we've put into the chat box and also via your membership area. I also have to remind everybody that the recordings from week 1 are now available in your membership area. So we've been saying this all week, that the recordings for each week are put into the membership area on a Friday, and you have until Monday to watch them. I will show you where you can find those recordings in just a moment. I just have to get through a few other housekeeping items first, and then I'll do a short demonstration. The final thing I wanted to mention is, if you would like to get onto the WX stage yourself and present a session to a huge global audience of coaches, just like Karen has, then the Coach Showcase feature is your chance to do this. The Coach Showcase is exclusive to Full Summit Premium members. We currently have 50% off all of the tickets for this year-long experience, and you can go to coaching.com/summit to learn about the Full Summit memberships if that is something that you are interested in. We have one last session this week. It is with Ruth Gautian, and she's presenting on virtual networking. So really interesting session there, and we hope that you can join us for that. For those of you who have to go, I'll say goodbye. I'm going to say goodbye to you as well, Karen, and I'm also going to stay and do a quick demonstration and answer some questions about the summit if anybody has them. So Karen, thank you so much. This was fabulous. Have an amazing weekend, and I will catch up with you very soon.